Hi, I'm Alessandra Cummins, Director of the Barbados Museum and Historical Society. I'm here today enjoying a conversation with Charles Codd Reynolds, who is the owner, and I should say more than the owner, the visionary who has brought together this group of images of black people in Britain between the 18th and 19th, early 20th centuries. So we're having a little talk about some of the images in that collection, and I want to say thank you very much, Charles, for considering to have these pieces here, and really looking forward to talking with you about some of them. First of all, I want to focus on this 18th century image of Job Ben Solomon and William Ansah Sessarakoo. Now, the latter is probably known to quite a few Barbadians, but why? And I think here we talk about the narrative of religion is still playing a major role, and what was the role that it played in this imaging of this personage?
Well, this double portrait that we have here in this Baroque roundel framing, we have the date of 1750 just in the corner, and we have Gent Mag here, Gentleman's Magazine. These had both been very well-known figures in London society during the middle decades of the 18th century. And Job Ben Solomon had originally come from the Gambia. He was enslaved, taken to Maryland. He wrote a letter back to his father seeking to be released, a payment to be made so that he could be released. The letter passed through London, it was translated, and it was seen that this was a highly educated man. And this connects all three figures in a way.
Yes.
We have to remember that those who have their image engraved are not going to be representative particularly of society.
Yes.
You know, this is the elite that we are seeing. All three come from aristocratic or royal backgrounds, as Job Ben Solomon did himself. His father was an imam in the royal house and related to the royal house. And we see in the image his Muslim piety, in that he has a copy of the Quran around his neck, which he was able to reproduce by memory. And while he was in London, he produced 3 copies of the Quran, handwritten copies, which became seminal texts for the study of Islam. Yeah.
And I think it's important also to consider that these images, while they were produced for Gentleman's Magazine, were based, as you said, it was not everyone who had their image portrayed.
Yeah.
So these two had experienced the same trauma, if you like, of being taken in slavery, and then were fortunately able to communicate with their families back in their native lands in Africa and seek release.
Yes.
And then attained a certain level of celebrity in Britain at the time, in England at the time. I think that we need to recognize that both of them were the subject of full-scale portraits.
Yes.
And that these images then, why would Gentleman's Magazine want to promote them, want to disseminate the image widely? What kind of knowledge is being transmitted with these?
Well, Job Ben Solomon, I mean, he had worked with Sir Hans Sloane, the founder of the British Museum. He worked in the Bodleian Library in Oxford. He was a member of the Spalding Gentlemen's Society, which was an academic society. I mean, these were people of standing, and the same with William Sessarakoo. Both of them were presented at court. So they were significant figures. They would have been regarded by other gentlemen
Okay.
as gentlemen.
Okay.
And because of the working of the class system at that time, in a way that we find both disturbing and entirely unattractive, but the view would have been of both is that they should have been slave owners. They should, you know, the natural order was being upset because they had been enslaved, and that was unjust. And so a subscription was raised for Job Ben Solomon by an Anglican priest, because you know it was not acceptable that someone like him had been enslaved. Right. And we can find that entirely weird and contradictory, but that was the mind and the way of making sense and the rationale of the mid-18th century.
And if you could take a little bit of a look at William and Sessarakoo, who in a sense shared some of that story,
Yes.
but rather ironically. I mean, his own father had been involved in enslaving
Yes.
Africans, and yet he found himself in the same condition. He arrived in Barbados. So it's an interesting scenario for someone to have been able to emerge out of that situation and have their portrait
Yes.
taken. I mean, this is a print
Yes.
taken of a full-scale portrait.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. Yeah. And I mean, we see him dressed here in all the fashion and refinement of a mid-18th century gentleman. I mean, his hair styled into a wig. And as you say, this is a print taken from a painting, as the one of Job Ben Solomon,
yeah.
which has only recently emerged about 9 years ago
Yes,
on,
yes.
on the private market. But it's the importance of prints, really, because prints will often be the evidence that a painting existed.
Yes.
So there was a view that a painting of
Had to have
Job
been
Solomon
produced.
existed, and so when it came onto the market, it could be referenced to the print that was known about.
I really want to encourage everyone to come and see this exhibition, The Black Presence, which is still on display at the Barbados Museum. It reveals many fascinating chapters in Barbadian and Caribbean history through the lens of British artists. And we have a unique opportunity to tell and retell these many stories. We look forward to having you with us.